All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at one example of finding domain. All right, now before we get started here, you really have to understand that there's two main rules that you have to abide by when you're looking at your domain. You cannot divide by 0, so when you have a rational function, that denominator cannot equal 0. So you have to make sure that you take that into account. All right, the other thing that you cannot do is you cannot take the square root of a negative number. This is assuming you're working in the real number system, in which case the square root of x, for my domain restrictions, I would have to say anything that's underneath that radical has to be greater than or equal to 0. All right, so in this scenario, I have a rational function, so clearly I cannot divide by 0, but I also have a square root in the top and the bottom. So I've got to take into account both of these conditions in both locations. All right, now my numerator is pretty straightforward. It's just a square root, so I just have to make sure that that has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, it can't be negative. So I'm going to take that 2 minus x, which is what's underneath the radical in the numerator, and set it greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and solve. So negative x is greater than or equal to a negative 2. All right, if I divide both sides by that negative and flip the inequality symbol, I get x is less than 2. Okay, now that takes care of my numerator. Now let's take a look at the denominator. Now, the denominator cannot be 0. If I was just looking at the square root function, I would set what was underneath greater than or equal to 0. However, it can't be equal to 0 because it's in the bottom. So I'm going to take just what's underneath that radical and set it greater than 0. So I'm going to go x plus 2 is greater than 0. That way I will avoid the 0 in the denominator. I'm going to go ahead and solve. X is greater than negative 2. All right, now the easiest way to do this then would be to take both of our restrictions here and plot them on a number line, see what overlaps. So I'm going to take my first one, x is less than or equal to 2. We'll put that on the number line. All right, let's say 2 is right here. All right, solid dot, and then we would be shading to the left. If I take my other restriction, x is greater than negative 2, all right, trying to draw them somewhat to scale. Negative 2 would be down here. It says x is greater than negative 2, so I'd have an open dot there, and then I would be shading to the right. All right, now, for my overall domain then, what part of these two number lines overlap? I'm looking for the overlapping of the two graphs. So that means then my domain would be a negative 2 with an open dot all the way up to a 2 closed dot, and the part in the middle is the part that overlaps. All right, now writing this in interval notation, I would have curvy bracket, negative 2 to 2, square bracket. All right, but the number line system is just a really good way to take into consideration all the different restrictions for your domain, and then once you have that number line, then it's easy to write your domain in terms of internal notation. Definitely thanks for watching. If the videos are helping, please be sure and share with your friends so they can benefit too, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks.